To receive instant notification each time I upload, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification.
Helping you along the way. Helping you to make it through another day. Yeah. Everything you need to know that you never knew, that you need to know. Look on perspective.
Well, hello, and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite things, and that's race cars. Now, I know a lot of you guys that do follow me know that I'm in love with Mopar. I'm in love with anything that races. I'm in love with big trucks. I'm in love with all that stuff. So it's awesome that I get to talk about tonight something that I really do enjoy, and that is watching them go around and around and around and around. You know, when I grew up in California, we would hear a lot of the racing that was over in Gardena, and then it was over in Long Beach for a good while. They actually had the tracks there. And so it's not necessarily that, it's the same type of thing, but we used to love to hear it. We used to love to go and sit there and watch it. And so I think that what's about to happen in Chicago is a really good thing. Now, there are a few people who feel like, well, I don't think I want to. This is what I do want to know. If there's anybody that's in the chat that lives in Chicago, and you are seeing any of what they've done, because they've done a lot of stuff to the streets or whatnot, I want you to chime in down below, and I want you to let us know what you've seen and what do you think about it coming there, and how do you feel about all the stuff, and is it actually bringing any financial growth to the city, which I would imagine that it is. So I do want to talk about that. But before we get started, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Headlines with a Voice. Of course, I'm Felicia Lockhart, and I just want to tell you guys that it's awesome to have you here this evening. Do me a giant favor before we even get started. Make sure that you hit that like button or dislike it if you got to. I understand. Any interaction with them buttons down below are really going to help the channel grow. Also, if you have not subscribed, would you consider subscribing to this channel? We do cover a lot of different topics. As you can see today, we're talking about something I love, which is NASCAR. And then we also cover a lot of things that are going on in the United States and the world. And so we do would love to have you as a part of our family. And if you already are subscribed, please make sure that that bell notification is still hit and that it's still there. And that you make sure that if it's not and you don't have it hit, click it today. Will you do that for us? Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to cover. I mean, a load of stuff. Who would have thunk that after, that just looking into NASCAR, you would have a whole lot of things to talk about? Well, we do, believe it or not. There's a lot that's going on with this. I know that some people last year were at the Coliseum when they did it in California, and there was a lot of people who said a lot of great things about it, but then there was a lot of stuff that they said prior to it happening that made it where it just maybe, wasn't so good. But I'm looking at today some of the historical pieces about Chicago, because a lot of people want to know maybe why Chicago of all places. Did you know that Chicago's history tells you that there's a lot of firsts that have taken place in Chicago? So let's take a look together at some of the history for Chicago so that we can, after, listening to some of this, we would all know. Now, here's a quote from Mark Twain. Whether you like him or you don't like him, we're going to look at this. It is hopeless for the occasional visitor to try to keep up with Chicago. She outgrows his prophecies faster than he can make them. That was from Mark Twain in 1883. Chicago was only 46 years old when Mark Twain wrote those words, but it had already grown more than 100-fold from the small trading post at the mouth of the Chicago River into one of the nation's largest cities. And it wasn't about to stop, because over the next 20 years, it would quadruple in population, amazing the rest of the world with its ability to repeatedly reinvent itself. And it hasn't stopped. Chicago continues to be the place that many from diverse backgrounds call home. Before it was a city, it was the home of numerous indigenous peoples. The legacy which continues to frame our relationship, it says, with the city, the land, and the environment. Today, Chicago has become a global city, a thriving center of international trade and commerce, and a place where people of every nationality and background come to pursue the American dream. Now, I don't know whether a lot of people know it, but you just might. There were indigenous folks there in the Chicago area as a part of the history and as a part of the backdrop to the story to let you know why it's okay for NASCAR to actually be in Chicago as a part of their firsts. Chicago was an indigenous land, completely indigenous. All of the tribes that you see there, I mean, there's a lot of them. There's the Winnebago, the Ho-Chunk, the Jurare, the Nuachi, there was the Baxoje. All of these tribes, a boatload of them, were in that area. Now, seated atop a continental divide, the Chicago region is located at the intersection of several great waterways, leading the area to become the site of travel and healing for many tribes. In early Chicago, Chicago's first non-indigenous person, did you know this even was a thing? There was a man by the name of Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. He was a free Black man from Haiti whose father was a French sailor and whose mother was an African slave. He came there in the 1770s via the Mississippi River from New Orleans with his Native American or his indigenous wife. And their home stood at the mouth of Chicago River. In 1803, the United States government built Fort Dearborn at what is now the corner of Michigan Avenue and Wacker Drive. Look for the bronze markers in the pavement, and that's how you'll find it if you're in that area. Or if you live there, not visiting, send me some pictures, will you? Now, it was also a trading center incorporated as a city. In 1837, Chicago was ideally situated to take advantage of the trading possibilities created by the nation's westward expansion. The completion of the Illinois and Michigan Canal in 1848 created a water link between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River, but the canal was soon rendered obsolete by railroads. And today, 50% of the United States rail freight continues to pass through Chicago, even as the city has become the nation's busiest aviation center, thanks to O'Hare and Midway International airports. Chicago grew as its residents took his heroic measures to keep peace, and in 1850s, they raised many of the streets about 5 to 8 feet to install a sewer system, and then raised the buildings as well. Unfortunately, the buildings, streets, and sidewalks were made of wood, and most of them burned down to the ground in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. The Chicago Fire Training Academy is located there on 558 West Devoken Street and is on the site of the O'Leary property where the fire actually began. The Chicago Water Tower and Pumping Station at Michigan and Chicago Avenues are among the few buildings that actually survived the fire. Now, Chicago rebuilt quickly. Much of the debris was dumped into the Lake Michigan as a landfill, forming the underpinnings of what is now Grant Park, Millennium Park, and the Art Institute of Chicago. Only 22 years later, Chicago celebrated its comeback by holding the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 with its memorable White City. One of the exposition's buildings was rebuilt to become the Museum of Science and Industry. Chicago refused to be discouraged even by the Great Depression, and in 1933 and 1934, the city held an equally successful Century of Progress exposition on Northerly Island. Now, you got Hull House, you got the first, which is really what I want to talk about. Chicago is the first in a lot of things. And I know a lot of you that are out there looking, you just might know it. But for those who don't know, throughout their city's history, Chicagoans have demonstrated their ingenuity in matters large and small. The nation's first skyscraper, the 10-foot steel frame home insurance building, was built there in 1884 at LaSalle and Adams Street, and it was demolished in 1931. When residents were threatened by waterborne illnesses from sewage flowing into Lake Michigan, they reversed the Chicago River in the 1900s and made it flow toward the Mississippi. Start of the heroic Route 66, which begins at Grant Park on Adams, in the front of the Art Institute of Chicago. Now, all of that took place, but here's a bunch of stuff that I know all of us all around the world, actually, here, especially in the United States, has been able to take advantage of. Get this. The first refrigerated rail car because of the company Swift. Mail order retailing started with Sears and Montgomery Ward there. The car radio via Motorola, the TV remote control via Zenith, and the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, ushering the atomic age, took place at the University of Chicago in 1942. The spot is marked by a Henry Moore sculpture on Ellis Avenue between 56th and 57th Street. Now, there's also the 1,451-foot Willis Tower, formerly known as Sears Towers, and it was completed in 1974. And it was the tallest building in the world from 1974 to 1998. So when you want to ask yourself, why would they have it there? And how come they chose that? Why not? It's an iconic place, and this, believe it or not, is an iconic event. Yeah, it is. Guess why? Because this is the first time, and this is a show that I love. They got a show called Street Outlaws. This is the first time they're taking it to the streets with NASCAR. And I'm really excited, as you guys can see. I want to talk about a couple of other things. We're going to do a little bit of looking. Let's do some look-seeing. We're going to look at some stuff here because I want you guys to see this. I am stoked. I won't be able to play the actual audio of it, but I do want you all to see it. So here we go. Let me paste this for you. Let me make sure I've got my sound on so that you guys can see it when I share it. Hello to everybody that's watching, and thank you guys for entertaining me with your presence with one of my loves, which again is Zoom, Zoom, Zoom. For you guys who are watching me on the Lockhart Perspective, you guys know I love Mopar, right? I love anything that's Dodge, and you guys may remember I've always said I love the rumble of the Dodge. We got two of them out here. We got the big trucks, but the thing about it is I love the rumble. I love the noise. And so I love to see the cars race. Again, Street Outlaws is one of my favorite. So that's what I'm thinking to myself. Gee whiz, they just took a page out of Street Outlaws book and decided, let's just go ahead and go all the way. Now, I'm going to let you see this because I said I was. Let me get it for you. Let me get it for you, baby. Let me get it for you, baby. Hope everybody's doing good while I stall. All right, here you go. Let me remove this one off the screen and give you the next one. And this next one is actually going to be a small, short video. I'm going to speak over it so that way we can use it, okay? We won't be able to use it if I don't speak over it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So while you guys are watching that, I'm going to go ahead and read another story to you, very short, because this is about a minute long. All right, there you go. You won't be able to hear it. You will not be able to hear it because I don't want to get a ding for it. You know what I mean? So the NASCAR drivers are ready to make history. NASCAR, the spectacle of NASCAR stock cars roared through the streets of downtown Chicago this weekend, and it will be the first for the sport, presenting both opportunities and challenges that are being taken seriously across the board. Ahead of the first street course in NASCAR Cup Series history, there seem to be two prevailing thoughts. The first is the anticipation and the excitement of NASCAR doing something new. For so long, the schedule was easily predictable. But in recent years, not only have there been new venues, but races on dirt inside of a football stadium. Racing on downtown streets of the major city is a logical next experiment. Now, there's some quotes that are in here, and I've left all of these down below for you guys so that you all can look at them. But there's one thing that's right here. This is from Almendinger. Sorry, you guys. He goes, I look back at the Bush. No, this isn't from him. This came from somebody else. I know who this is. No, we'll say, well, it is. It's Almendinger. But I didn't think this was Almendinger's quote. We're going to read it. It says, I look back at the Bush Clash last year at the LA Coliseum, and before we left that race, everybody thought it was going to be a complete joke. And we thought we were going to look like complete fools. But it was probably the best event of last year. It wasn't Almendinger. It's Kevin Harvick that said this. I knew it wasn't Almendinger. So Kevin Harvick said this. And then he goes on to say, when you look back at that, and you remember how much fun you had in that car, in the car, and you see the way that it was perceived and the way the racing was and everything that happened, it was a phenomenal way to kick off our season. And I have to agree with them. I don't know how many of you guys watched all that was going on, but you know, it was good stuff. The course will have a little bit of everything. There are wide lanes on Columbus Drive this time, on Lakeshore Drive, but also plenty of narrow areas. And unlike the road course races that drivers are used to, have off areas, there's dirt, grass, or asphalt, there won't be many in Chicago. No one knows what to expect on Sunday, but only the conscientious, on the excuse me, the only consensus is that it will be an adventure. Now, here's a closer look at the Chicago street course. Man, did they do some stuff out there. They really did a lot of work out there. They honestly did. It's amazing how much stuff that they did for NASCAR. I'm totally amazed. But let's take a look at exactly what it is that they did. I'm going to show you this. No, you guys keep watching this, and I'll show you what they've done. They have done a lot of stuff, a load of stuff. There's also some sad parts there too that we're going to talk about. We're going to look at a couple of other things that are going on right now with Jimmy Johnson. I definitely want to look at that as well because that's sad. And yeah, so we're going to take a look at that as well. So, oh, looks like we missed it. I had it, but nonetheless, they have done some work on that trail. Let me tell you, the way that they have worked on that course is amazing. They have so much stuff that's going on. They have so many different entrances and exits. They have even gone so far, of course, as they normally would, to take in account for the fact that, you know what, they need emergency exits. But the way that they've set these up are awesome. They're unbelievable. They even have what's going on there. They said that some of the roads were as wide as the Poconos. They're huge. They're wide roads. I think like 6 or 7 lanes or whatever. But they've done a good job, I think, outfitting for this particular event. You know what I mean? Let me ask you guys a question down below in the chat. Do you think this was a good idea for them to take this to Chicago? What are your thoughts on that? And I'm going to look at those comments and put some of them up. Hey, Becca, how you doing? Betty R, how are you? Brad A and Manny C, how's it going? Alan Davis, how are you? So you guys tell me, what do you think? Do you think that this was a good idea for them to try another venue or another way to do this year? Let me know down below in the comments and let me know here in the chat before we go on to the next segment. Now, I do want to talk about a closer look at the street course. The 12-turn course is still under construction, believe it or not. And this is Thursday, right? It's not supposed to be finished up until Friday because they can't keep closing up all the roads. So the 12-turn course is still under construction, being completed in segments to avoid extended traffic shutdowns. And it will not be closed until Friday evening, with no official running until Saturday morning. Xfinity Series drivers will get the first crack with a practice session set for 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday. Now, listen, there are many variables in play regarding the Chicago race, which include Columbus Drive, which will serve as a pit road and a front stretch, and it has been paved. Now, there's other newly paved areas over the bridge transitions to bring the roads very even, to bring the surfaces even, and there's also other areas, including Balboa Drive, going over the railroad tracks, and a pedestrian bridge on Lakeshore Drive. Do you think they're going to keep a lot of this other stuff there? Because, you know, they do sometimes, like when they went into Atlanta, they outfitted Atlanta several years ago for certain things, and they kept some of the stuff. And then I do remember that when we had the Olympics in Los Angeles at the Coliseum several years ago, they did leave a few things as well, because once they outfit it, it's hard to take all that stuff down. I hope they do the same here. But what I hope more than anything is that it brings some good revenue and some peace to that area. So now, again, there are an estimated 90 manholes throughout the course. Many have been capped up by the wall because they are so close to the street curves. And on Tuesday was painting day. That was for the pit road, including the 28-foot pit stalls. The traditional pit road camera system will be used as NASCAR received permission from the city to mount its cameras on light poles. NASCAR is using many shared resources. For example, the fencing that's around the course is being built by the same company that did so for the NTT IndyCar Series races in Nashville and in Detroit. In race control, a company familiar with street course races, from working on the Monaco Grand Prix and the necessary camera system and software needed, is involved in installing it. Now, there are also emergency crews for the on-track work, and it's going to come from Michigan, Milwaukee, Road America, Iowa, and other Midwest tracks. NASCAR will also have help from Chicago PD, and we would imagine that, right? From Chicago's fire department, which will station its units on Fuel Island with the Sunoco operations. Chicago FD will also work with racing operations concerning pit medical and fire carts. A fire prevention group that visited the Charlotte Roval last season will to do recon, and another group, including the Chicago police, attended the race at Circuit of the Americas in March. Now, just as with any other course race, there will be cutouts in the Chicago street course for emergency exits, which is what we were talking about a few minutes ago, to enter and exit the course. For drivers, escape locations to get to the garage will be to the left turn on turn 2, and the drivers left at turn 12. So they've got a couple of different places they can get out and make their emergency or their escape locations, I should say. Turn 4 and turn 11 have off areas for drivers who encounter trouble. Tim Berman, NASCAR Senior Director of Competition Operations and a Chicago native, noted that Lakeshore Drive is 6 lanes wide. That's what I was telling you guys about a few minutes ago. Columbus Drive is also wide. He says, quote, almost Pocono wide. I found that funny. Almost Pocono wide, Berman said. According to Berman, the narrowest section of the Chicago course is still a foot wider than the entire racing surface of Road America. Now, Charlie Jones, the CEO of Four Leaf Productions and co-founder of Lollapalooza, has a team working with NASCAR as they are familiar with the city of Chicago, having put on events for over 20 years. Jones knows the ins and outs of working with the city on the course closure, permits, working with the politicians, etc., as they have helped with grandstand builds, suite buildings, and the concert side of the weekend. Now, I'm going to come back over here and talk to you guys because I want to ask you, who is performing? Does anybody know who's performing? Man, they got a lineup. Now, he mentioned the concert sides, but let me tell you, there are the Chainsmokers, Miranda Lambert, the Black Crowes. I mean, they've got a whole boatload of people. Who would have thunk it? Who'd have thunk that that's what they would have done? But over there at NASCAR, they have got it all going on. So you'll be able to get in and out. You'll be able to go in, have fun. You'll be able to do whatever you want to do. You'll be able to go in, like I said, and see these concerts from July 1st through July 2nd. Obviously, it's going to be NASCAR. But then after that, they're going to have a whole lot of stuff that's going to be because of Independence Day. And let's hope and pray that everything goes the right way. Right? Let's just hope and pray. There's no problems with that. I'm hoping and I'm a praying. So that's yeah. So I wanted to talk about that because I don't think that a lot of people are going to expect for people to go there and see concerts and things like that. Although you do expect it. You're going to pay $283 as a baseline for the ticket. I would hope that you do get some other type of entertainment or have the ability to get around and go see other things. So now I want to talk about, we already talked about all this good stuff. Oh, yeah. Again, who lives there? Is anybody in the chat from there? Has anybody seen anything there? Now, I do want to talk about it, and I do want to send my condolences to, let's look at Jimmy Johnson as he had to withdraw from the race because of, obviously, a situation with family. And I believe that's very important for him to have done. But I want you guys to see this one, not the one that's on the screen right now. Let me give you this one because it's without the blurbs and stuff. So hopefully you guys will see this one. If you don't, I can make sure that you do. Okay. There it is. Yeah. Jimmy Johnson withdraws from NASCAR race after a family tragedy. So it is important that we all keep this man and his family in our, keep interceding for people. There was a seven-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, Jimmy Johnson, has withdrawn from the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Chicago Street Course. Johnson, who was set to make his 4th Cup start of the year, driving number 84 Legacy Motor Club Chevrolet in the inaugural event, he ran the season opening Daytona 500 COTA and the Coke 600. Johnson was also a part of the Garage 56 NASCAR entry at the 24 Hour of Le Mans earlier this month. The decision to bow out of the Chicago race, however, comes following the news of a terrible tragedy involving the family of Jimmy's wife of nearly 20 years, Chandra. Her parents, Jack and Terry Janway, as well as Chandra's 11-year-old nephew, Dalton, have all been killed in what police say is a possible murder-suicide. The shooting took place on Monday evening in Muskogee, Oklahoma. As a result, Johnson has understandably withdrawn from the weekend's race with the team he co-owns, releasing the following statement. He says, quote, Legacy Motor Company has elected to withdraw number 84 Carvana Chevrolet from the weekend's NASCAR Cup Series event in Chicago. The Johnson family has asked for privacy at this time, and there are no further statements that will be made, close quote. So NASCAR also went ahead and they released their own statement saying that they were saddened by the tragic deaths of the members of Chandra Johnson's family. The entire NASCAR family extends our deepest support and condolences during this difficult time to Chandra, Jimmy, and the entire Johnson and Janway families. And so because we know these are real people, let's give some real, some concern and intercede for the family, because it doesn't matter that we don't know anything about the background, but we do know that it's a sad story anytime you see something like that. So let's hope that they get to the bottom of it ASAP. Now, I do want to switch reels a little bit, because one of the major concerns that you get whenever you're going to have an event like this is you want to know who's going to mind the shop. Are the police going to be off work? Are they going to be able to show up? Well, according to some of the stories that we see, there is absolutely no time off for the police department there in that city. None. No time. No time off. Everybody got to show up. So let's get into this, because I want you guys to see this as well. So NASCAR street race CPD officers must work overtime for traffic control, with crowds expected to flock to the lakefront of the 4th of July races. CPD says off-duty officers and those from the other districts will be deployed to direct traffic downtown. Gee, that's going to be a hot rump mess, don't you think? That's going to be a mess. Woo! So Chicago police officers will have to work overtime to direct traffic for street closures related to NASCAR street race over the July 4th holiday. But the Chicago Police Department says staffing should be at a level where no officers will have to be taken away from neighborhoods to help at the downtown event. Now, wait a minute now, because you and I both know that there don't be no event. And y'all neighborhoods be pretty run down and pretty run over with all the crime and whatnot. Let's just hope that y'all can keep it together and that there's enough people who respect the fact that y'all got some company coming from out of other places, different countries and different states, for them to act right. Let's just hope, because y'all be off the chain down there. So they say, don't worry, not going to take nobody from the neighborhoods to help at a downtown event. So that means things is going to be normal. Quote, we are working very hard to limit the number of canceled days off, and we will have sufficient coverage in every district in the city. This comes from the CPD Deputy Chief Daniel O'Connor. Daniel O'Connor said at a city council committee meeting on Wednesday, in the session of the Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Committee, called to explore the impact of NASCAR's inaugural race. Race officials outlined safety plans and steps taken to minimize the effects on people who live nearby. Committee members pressed NASCAR officials for assurances about how they would allow local residents past traffic control barriers and what measures would be taken to protect the pedestrians and cyclists from increased road traffic. About 175 to 200 people are needed for traffic control for the whole city over the race weekend. Wow, that's well above the normal staffing of 130 traffic control aides, according to Bob Lejiski, the superintendent of traffic services at the Office of Emergency Management and Communications. The city's traffic aides will be working double shifts, but the police officers will be needed to fill in the gaps, Lejiski said. Sorry, baby. That's what he said. Quote, we have many other events in the city. The Cubs are in town. That's another thing. Yeah, the Cubs are in town. And there's a concert at the United Center. We will have 30 to 35 traffic aides specifically working on this event. But I hate to say it, he says, that they'll be working a 15-hour tour that day. Big deal. They're okay. I mean, give them 4 15s, or let them have a day off. Give them 5 15s and let them have a day off after the event is over. They'll be all right. Ain't nothing wrong with them. So O'Connor said the CPD will mainly be drawing from officers who are off duty who had days off canceled. Quote, we do anticipate canceling the days off for the majority of all of our officers. In addition, we have opened up a voluntary overtime initiative to try to tamp down the number that will be canceled, close quote. O'Connor said CPD is working on figuring out how many officers will be needed. He said the majority of the officers working overtime will be needed for directing the traffic. Beyond the traffic management, NASCAR did assure the alderpersons that it was minimizing its impact downtown by limiting drive time to 10 hours over the weekend. And this comes from Julie Geese, the president of NASCAR's Chicago Street Course. On Saturday, the drivers will practice between 10:30 and 2:30, 10:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. before the 55-lap Xfinity race, she said. On Sunday, doors open at 9 a.m. for the main cup race, which will be 100 laps, followed by a small victory lane celebration. The race course will be enclosed by 2,000 concrete barriers, each weighing 10,000 pounds, that are topped with a 10-foot-high opaque fence designed to withstand debris from crashes. The barriers are bound together by cables and have been used in street races before. They obstruct views from outside the race and will deter people from gathering along Michigan Avenue to catch a glimpse of the race without a ticket. And NASCAR's safety plan has been in the works for months. In January, officials from the Chicago Police and Fire Departments attended NASCAR's annual safety summit in Charlotte, North Carolina. On the matter of protecting the public from race car crashes, Alderman Bill Conway of the 34th District asked about a June 4th Sun Times story. Always got to be some gossip that quoted driver Bubba Wallace saying, racing through the city streets very narrow. I honestly don't know how it's all going to work out. I think there are a lot of us that are skeptical in the field, close quote. So he wanted to know all about that, and he asked the question. And the spokesperson said that she spoke directly to Wallace about that story and explained to alderpersons that he meant in a competitive sense, not in a public safety sense. Geese also goes on to say, he assured me that there was not a concern about safety. It was about making some of those passes, closed quote. So I thank you guys for hanging out with me and one of my loves, because like I said, I absolutely love NASCAR, absolutely love racing, absolutely love it all. And I'm glad you guys hung out with me. Hey, David Bentley, how you doing? Hey, Toadette, how's everybody? Everybody's doing good. Brad, all y'all. Hey, Manny C, we said hey to you early. Hey, baby. So yeah, so that's some of the stuff that's going on. But I want you guys to let me know down below in the chat. Did you guys know anything about the history of Chicago once we started reading it today? I'm sure maybe some of you did, but did everybody know all of that about the history? And do you, again, of course, as we just got through asking, do you live in that area? And if you live in that area, what you seen? How does it look? Tell me all about it, baby. Tell me all about it so that I will know what you know. All right. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with me for the last few minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me on one of my favorite topics. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. And let me know if you guys want more topics like this, because I tell you, I got a lot of stuff that I love to do that'll probably shock you. I'd love to bring you angler news. I'd love to talk to you about fishermen's love, the love. Oh, listen, I got a video that we did while we were on the coast, and we went into a bait shop and we talked to to an owner of a bait shop. Both she and her husband own it. We talked about it. We were down there at the coast. We were down there on the pier, and it was awesome. Also, I mean, there's a lot of different things. So what I want you guys to do for me, really pretty please, first of all, make sure that you like this video. Make sure that you share it if you have the ability to on any of your social media, and make sure that you're still subscribed. But I also need you. I need you guys to tell me what you'd like to see. What you'd like to see, because I do love fishing and I love talking about the ocean. I love talking about all that kind of stuff. And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to share more of the things that I love, like this type of story with you. So let me know, how do you feel about that? Until we see each other again, I want you guys to remember what we always say on any Felicia Lockhart Group publications. And that is that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. I want you guys to make sure that you take care of yourselves first and then reach around and take care of somebody else, because you know what I always say, if you ain't okay, ain't nobody else all right. If you're not doing good, ain't nobody else going to be all right. So take care of yourself first. And then I want you to make sure that you take care of my friend, and my friend is you. Okay? You guys take care of yourselves, take care of one another. Continue to be blessed. To receive instant notification each time I upload, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification.
Helping you along the way, helping you to make it through another day.